year. But I'm glad to be part of this amazing network. So I want to share what we do and why we do it, and just spread the word and grow our family through the Rotary community. So I'm going to share my screen now. Awesome. Everybody can see?
Yep.
Perfect. Again, my name is Emily Pavor. I'm the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator for the GLP. I'll shorten it to the GLP just because Guatemala Literacy Project is a little bit of a mouthful over and over. Who we are is a network of individual Rotarians, Rotary clubs, and districts, and then our nonprofit partner, Cooperative for Education, who does like our non-Rotary fundraising, and then GLP is all Rotary. And our mission is working to end poverty in Guatemala through education. And a common question that I usually get after I say that is, out of all the communities and countries in the world that need our help, especially through Rotary, why do we focus on Guatemala? Which is a great question. Here's a reminder of where Guatemala is. Small country in Central America, about the size of a U.S. state, and you guys are in Florida, so I'm sure you're very familiar with where Guatemala is. And so the answer to that question of why Guatemala is actually quite simple. Guatemala is the poorest and least educated country in the Western Hemisphere. So 4 out of 5 indigenous Guatemalans live in poverty their whole lives, and the average indigenous adult has less than a 5th grade education. So they usually drop out of school by then or never go. And even though progress has been made, 2 out of every 3 children in Guatemala will drop out of school by the 6th grade, simply because their parents can't afford to send them. Public school in Guatemala is not free after the 5th grade, so the families have to pay for it themselves, whether it's public, private, or parochial. This is a key driver behind poverty throughout the country. So the GLP is a partnership, again, between Rotary and Cooperative for Education, and we like to call it a perfect marriage because Rotary brings the name recognition, a global network of amazing professionals and volunteers, and the resources to get things done. And COED brings a dedicated staff of Guatemalan teachers, trainers, and experts. We have about a team of 50 people in Guatemala that do all of our on-the-ground work. And this perfect partnership ensures the long-term sustainability of our programs. So this is our GLP family, as we like to call it. The GLP is actually the largest grassroots multi-club, multi-district project in Rotary history. So we've been around for almost 23 years now, which is pretty amazing. So in total, we've worked with over 600 Rotary clubs across 80 districts, 46 US states, 8 countries, and I think we're now in every province of Canada. Even though a single Rotarian can't change the world on our own, we know that by working together, our power comes collectively. So the impact that we've made together with Rotarians' help is pretty wonderful. These are all of our active 2020 programs. So over the last 23 years, our programs have benefited almost 250,000 students, which is enough to fill any like Major League Baseball stadium about 5 times over. We have 207 textbook programs, 94 reading programs, 53 computer centers, 731 individual RISE scholars, which I'll break down what each of those mean after this slide. But each day our programs affect about 57,000 students, which is pretty amazing, and that's not possible without Rotary's help. When former Rotary International President Ian Riceley came to visit Guatemala, the local Rotary clubs chose to highlight the GLP, and after seeing all of our work and our programs firsthand, he called the GLP the gold standard of Rotary projects, which was such a compliment. So we take a comprehensive approach to all of those educational programs. Here you can see how they break down per educational level, and I'm going to talk about each of these 4 programs individually. We feel that meeting the students where they are and making sure that we're with them every step of the way gets them to graduation. So I'll start with our Spark reading program at the elementary school level. We call it Spark because we're trying to spark a love for reading, because that's where the fun part of education starts, and they are excited to have all ladder learning. This program is so necessary because 1 out of 3 Indigenous Guatemalans cannot read or write. They're completely illiterate. And one thing you'll hear me saying a lot is Indigenous Guatemalan. What exactly does that mean? Indigenous Guatemalans are descendants from the Mayan culture, as we learned about in school and in history. So Indigenous Guatemalans make up about 40% of the country now, and most of them still live in isolated communities in the western highlands in the mountains in Guatemala, and they often have less education. They live below the poverty line and don't have as many opportunities as people who are not Indigenous. If you look at this picture, what do you think it means? See those thumbprints. Does anybody know what maybe this symbolizes? Feel free to unmute yourself and say what you think this signifies.
I would say that that's their signature because they don't know how to write.
Exactly, Julia. Yes. So people who don't know how to read or write, they have to sign with their thumbprint. So a fingerprint is a symbol of complete illiteracy in Guatemala. You can see that we've written their names beside the thumbprint because they can tell us their names. They sign with a thumbprint. So these are parents' signatures. So as you can see, it's pretty dominant here how many people are completely illiterate. So in our Spark program, we aim to change that by starting with our elementary school teachers. A lot of them start teaching school right out of high school. They haven't had adequate training. Their schooling themselves was probably really difficult. They didn't have the resources that they needed. So in our Spark program, we offer 42 hours of training to our teachers, 3 to 5 in-class observations from a licensed trainer, and an average of 150 beautiful children's books for their classroom. So this really diversifies their techniques so that they can engage their students, get them reading, get them literate, because if you just pass students along without them being able to read or enjoy reading, they're not going to learn. So this is key because we want our teachers to engage their students, and we want them excited and out of their seats, raising their hands like in this photo. And we know that getting them to read a children's book and getting them to activate their imagination is so key in all later learning. Here's a technique that we teach the students is a classroom theater. The kids made these adorable little puppets and they're bringing words to life by acting out a story. And again, that's getting that light to come on in their eyes that they understand, and they're connecting the words with their actions with reading. Also, we get them to write their own stories. This is really key in getting them to see what opportunities they have in life because they're able to write their own stories. Oftentimes they feel like that story's already wrote and they're going to live the same lives that their parents lived and their grandparents before them. So it's really important that we show them that they have opportunity. So our next program is at the middle school level, which is our textbook program. This is how we started the GLP 23 years ago. My colleague Joe, who's a Rotarian, he went to teach English in Guatemala and got to a classroom. They didn't have a single book. He knew that was a problem, so being a Rotarian, he got a small grant and started purchasing books and distributing them to schools that needed them, and it's grown from there. And now our global grant mainly supports our textbooks and our computers. This was a widespread problem across the country because 90% of rural students in Guatemala don't have any books. Their teachers may have a copy, maybe a printed copy or an old one that they use, but they spend most of class writing all of the lessons on the board. And so the students copy it down in their notebooks, copy. Class is over, they haven't learned anything. So it's so key to have those books in hand so that they can actually learn as opposed to just memorizing or copying something down. I cannot imagine going through school without any textbooks. I'm sure you couldn't as well. So we know that providing textbooks and making sure that the teachers are engaged and prepared are the top 2 ways to improve education in the developing world, and the GLP does both of those things. And Rotarians actually make that happen too. Our solution is providing textbooks to these schools in 4 subject areas, math, science, social studies, and Spanish. And Rotarians like you come and deliver them with us. It's truly life-changing to be able to take a box of books to a school and deliver them into the hands of teachers who really need them and who have been trained on how to use them. So once we deliver those books, we give back a fourth of a teacher's instruction time to actually teach. And so we know that kids who receive textbooks score significantly higher on standardized tests. So our other middle school program is our computer program. And as we sit here on Zoom, we know that technology is important. We wouldn't be here without technology. We wouldn't be connected. So in Guatemala, that's even more prevalent because 60% of mid-level jobs that these kids are trying to get once they graduate require the use of a computer. So we know in an ever-changing world, those numbers are only going to go up. So many Guatemalan students have never touched, let alone learned how to use a computer in their educational career. So in our program, we provide 100 lessons over 3 years in middle school to ensure that these students know how to use a computer well. And once completing our program, 95% of those students will go on to find a job or continue in high school. High school in Guatemala is very similar to like trade school. So once they graduate at a certain level, they can then go on to like a specific trade in their diversificado study. One thing that we knew we wanted to establish early on was a sustainability plan. If we just showed up with a pickup truck full of computers and books, dropped them off, these programs wouldn't be successful, they wouldn't be exciting or sustainable. So we decided to create like a revolving fund so that each year we put money aside to then recoup the money that we had in the initial investment to buy the books. So in this model, you can see that after 5 years, we've recouped $5. So we are then able to replace the books and make sure that they are quality and updated and 100% self-sustaining. So over the last 23 years, more than 100 schools in our programs have renewed through this model. And our final program is our RISE Youth Development Program for middle and high school students. Studies show that in Guatemala, you have to graduate from high school in order to get out of poverty. Without a diploma, your limits are, your options are completely limited. So 95% of students will never graduate. It's like climbing a mountain for them because they're not only facing poverty, they're facing things like lack of support at home, teen pregnancy, having to go and do manual labor to support their family, and also widespread alcoholism and violence in their communities. So in our program, RISE students are selected that are about to drop out. They have so many resources provided to them that their graduation rate is then skyrocketed to 80%. So 5% outside of our program, 80% in our program. And that's possible because it's not just a financial scholarship, it's much more than that. We focus on job skills training. Here's a student giving a mock interview in front of her class with one of our licensed trainers. You probably noticed a lot of the clothing as well. She's wearing traditional indigenous Guatemalan clothing. It's called a traje. It's all handmade. She or her mother hand embroidered all of this, and she wears it every day to school. Another part of our RISE program is exposure to different types of careers. So we take them on field trips or go to meet people at lots of different industries so that they know what opportunities are out there. Oftentimes, if you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up in Guatemala, they'll say a teacher. Which is amazing, but you realize that that's probably the only professional person that they've ever seen outside of manual labor. So we would love for them to be teachers, but we also want them to know what options are out there. We also focus on leadership training, financial literacy, anything that can really help them identify and present solutions to problems in their own communities. Here's one of our students with two of my coworkers here on either side with our polos. We have a team of amazing staff guides, mentors, and licensed psychologists that work out of our office in Guatemala who support these students hopefully through graduation, which is really amazing. Here's one of my favorite stories about one of our first RISE scholars, and Selma here on the left. She graduated in 2012. This is her with her mother in the middle and her grandmother on the far right. So 3 generations of Guatemalan women in one photo with their beautiful handmade clothing. Mom in the center, completely illiterate, desperately poor. Grandma on the far right, can't read or write, has lived in absolute poverty her entire life. And Selma, however, after graduating from high school with the help of our program, she started taking college classes, was working at a call center, which is a solid middle class job, and making 4 times more than her father was making at the time. So in one family, in one generation, we've broken the cycle of poverty in this family through education, which is truly amazing. And the most amazing thing is that Anselma now has a daughter, Abigail, here in this photo. The story doesn't end because Abigail is never going to need one of our scholarships. She's never going to need any financial help to get an education. She's not going to grow up in poverty because her mom can now provide for her. So again, we've broken that cycle of poverty and it stopped there. So this family can now live comfortably in middle class or even continue to exceed that and raise a family of educated people who will then pass down that value of education, which is truly amazing. So the big question, I know this is a lot of information, but what's next? If you were to get involved, what would that look like? How could you and your club help more students like Anselma? And we have one key way that we have every year is a global grant that we run. Even a contribution as small as $100. As you probably know, we could request a match from the Rotary Foundation for you and get that multiplied, 3-4 times, which is truly amazing. We just love growing our GLP family. So even if you aren't able to contribute, mainly because the world has changed a lot right now. You're not able to fundraise like you thought you could. Things have changed. The most important part is just spreading the word. You've already become a valued member of the GLP family by listening to my presentation today. But other options would include sponsoring a student like Anselma, sponsoring a teacher or a computer. Without clubs like yours, the work we do wouldn't be possible. So thanks for this opportunity to share about our work. And I really believe that once we educate these children, they're really going to pull their community and ultimately their country out of poverty. So thanks so much. And I'd love to show you some pictures of other Rotarians who have traveled with us and open the floor for questions.
You mentioned that you have opportunities to sponsor a student or a teacher. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that looks?
Absolutely. Great question. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everybody. Great question, Deborah. So a RISE scholarship or youth development program is $80 a month for a full scholarship. So that would be tuition, books, uniform, workshops, tutoring, everything is covered for $80 a month, or you could pay in one lump sum of $960 per year. Some clubs will do that. We have, I believe, almost 20 clubs who sponsor a student. Individuals will do it on their own personally, or even go in with a friend. You could split it for, $40 a month, $20 for people, but you get to communicate with them. You can write letters to them and we'll translate, send photos, and a lot of people will try to go down, like in those photos I was showing, to meet their students in person, which is really amazing here. So you can see the woman in the middle, that's her RISE student that she sponsors. Great question.
Very cool. Oh, you're on mute.
The Guatemala is about the size of a state of the United States.
Yes.
How many towns or communities are you able to get into across all that land? Or do you focus on the couple that you can get into safely? And is that country safe to do that in?
Great question. So there are parts that are safer than others, for sure. Our focus is mainly in the Western Highlands right now, in those isolated mountainous communities, which are very safe. I mean, they themselves can live on a mountain across from another mountain and never meet the people on the other side. It's very quiet and isolated. We do have programs throughout some of the cities. We mainly work outside of Guatemala City. That would be like the most dangerous place. A lot of the stories that you'll hear about in the news, the gang violence, is in San Marcos, which is like the western part of Guatemala. We haven't really got into that area mainly because of the safety of our staff. But we have a compound that's very safe in San Lucas, Guatemala. We always have security. So whether it's our local facilitators who are going out to do wellness checks on students, or volunteers like Rotary clubs who will come down and deliver books with us, we always have security just in case. But thankfully, we've never had anything happen, but we always are just careful. So we hope to continue to grow into those areas because obviously they're most in need, but we also want to keep our staff safe. So we hope to be able to reach those students or maybe get those families out of those areas into safer areas. Oh, you're still muted. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that you're dealing with small groups in these schools. Are these schools already existing?
Yes.
Average, how many kids are in these schools? And why aren't the teachers teaching them these basics to begin with?
Great question. So their schools range in size. So you can have a small village school that would just maybe have 50 to 100 kids. You can have a school with, 500 kids. It just ranges. We work with all different schools. They're already existing, so we don't run the schools. We work as like advocates who go in and offer training, offer books, offer computers. Like I said, a lot of those teachers themselves didn't get a good education. So they, may graduate from high school, which is such a feat already. Say 5% graduate from high school. Some of those will go on to be teachers and they themselves have not gotten proper training. So we're trying to change that because the Ministry of Education, which is part of the government there, sometimes comes to us for advice because they don't always know the best practices. So it's really just this long history of lack of quality education that we've been able to actually change in 23 years. And now the Ministry of Education trusts us. And we're hoping to continue to grow to be in every school so that, a teacher knows what they're doing from the beginning. But that's a great question. Yeah, it's one that I hope that we can continue to grow.
Are there other nonprofits working in that area and that you coordinate with? Or?
Yes, absolutely. There are many, countless. There are some that do similar things, educational programs. There are a lot of medical missions, a lot of dental missions, just because the dental care there is so poor. They have little to none like clean water available to them. So you'll see a lot of water projects through Rotary clubs as well. A lot of NGOs that do the same thing. Their healthcare system there is almost non-existent. They also don't have a postal system. They don't have good like water treatment systems at all. So a lot of people drink bottled soda, and so you'll see that in some of the photos you'll see their teeth are in poor condition. So a lot of people go down there to do dental work.
Crazy.
Yes.
Do you know, Emily, how the pandemic has affected them in the areas that you're doing your program?
Yeah, great question. So I talk to my team about twice a week to get updates because it seems like it changes every day, unfortunately. But thankfully, they're not as affected since they are a smaller country. It hasn't spread as fast. The government acted very quickly and closed travel, closed schools around the same time that the United States did. So they only had a few cases, but thankfully they acted quickly. So I believe they have less than 300 cases. But that's obviously lower because they don't have as much testing as they need. But I know that they have a curfew. They have a very strict curfew. It's like 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. You have to be in your house. You are fined or arrested if you're out and about. And there's no public transit. So they've acted quickly. But again, if they opened up again like normal, the virus would probably hit them much harder because they don't have the healthcare system or the immune systems to get through it. So we actually set up an emergency relief fund in the past week to help any cases of students that maybe are sick or are just in dire needs for help. So we have some people that have donated to that, and especially sponsors of students that have been laid off here that can't support them anymore, being sure that we can step in and help so that they don't feel like they're letting their student down.
Oh, for sure. Any other questions?
Great.
I have Emily's. Who's the best person to contact if we want to make a donation? Is it to go to GuatemalaLiteracy.org? Is that the best?
Yeah, here, is it better to drop it in the chat or just send it to you after the the
You can
call
email
is
it
open.
to me and I'll forward it on.
Yeah, perfect. So we have our our Rotary fundraising site is guatemalaliteracy.org. That's our website. And then our partner who does like non-Rotary fundraising is called COED. So we have two websites. All of our global grant fundraising is on our GLP website. You can learn more about our service trips. You can learn more about all of our programs. And then if you wanted to actually sponsor a student, that would be on the COED website. So I'll send both of those and put any forms. You can contact me about anything. So
Okay.
you can freely share my contact information with anyone in the club. Yeah, I'll try to put any resources I can think of in there. I know it's a lot of info to take in, so thanks so much for listening to me talk really.
I'm glad you were able to join us. Yeah, because
Me too.
it's good information.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you guys have asked wonderful
Thank
questions.
you.
Yeah, of course. Kathy, did you have one more question? I saw no, someone did.
Okay.
Thank you
All
all
right.
so much.
Thank you.
Of
Thanks,
course.
Emily.
Yeah, I will go ahead and hop off and send that email over to you, but
Okay.
all the best. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Love
much.
you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, you too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Stay well, and I hope to connect with you in the future.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
All right, guys.
That was
Any other
great.
news?
Y'all just got bigger.
Huh?
Y'all just got bigger.
Bam. Well, you were a beach for a long time.
Yeah, I know. It's wishful thinking.
I have recordings of the last few meetings. I got bogged down with doing SBA stuff, prepping stuff, tax returns and things. So I will get those out with an email that says with the links so that people can do makeups who haven't been joining us. And then I'll send the extra information on how to contact if you're interested in any of the last couple speakers that we've had. Is there anything else that we need to discuss, talk about? Has everyone had a chance to post the giving challenge on their Facebook page or go to it?
Yep.
Share it, reach out,
Donated.
donate. Yeah.
I got a couple.
Are we still having that scavenger hunt thing on the 1st?
Friday
Okay.
night.
You'll
Yeah, I need to send out an invite.
Okay.
Tracy, are you going to send out another blast on the giving challenge?
Yeah, I was gonna do one tomorrow morning to just
Yeah.
say, you know,
That's what I was thinking.
countdown to everybody.
Yeah, because I kind of did one right before the meeting. Hey, our meeting is in 30 minutes, and if you haven't done this, go for it. So
Yep.
very good.
And you all should have gotten my email. There will be a short survey, just 10 questions coming out later this week. So if you could get those into me, that will help me immensely in my planning. My planning is completely shifting at the moment because of all of this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to do my best to be prepared for both.
It'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting year.
Just be patient.
Yeah. Hey, I think as long as everybody has your back, we'll all work together. It'll be fine.
Yep. It is what it is. So we'll
It
deal
is.
with it either
Everybody
way.
does their best, and everybody supports each other, and
Yeah,
that's all you can do.
that's right.
And if anyone has a burning desire to step up and be secretary,
Yes, we still have that open position.
because Bradley was supposed to be secretary and he had to move back up to Michigan. So we do have an open position if someone is interested.
It's very easy to do. You
Yeah,
just
but
have
you know how to do everything, Tracy.
we're now on the engagement section of DACDB, and it is so much easier than the attendance section. I mean, literally, you can do the attendance on the cell phone now.
Boy, that is a change.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's really easy.
Well, and I think one benefit, I know that Deb and me and Tracy and Karen, there are a bunch of us that have been trained in how to add events, upload articles. So it does go smoother when a group of people are feeding the information along. It helps tremendously, and it's not just one person having to do it all. That makes a big difference. So, all right.
Well, as with Zoom, you'll see a lot transition going into DAC-DB, which we've talked about. Most everything now from the future is going to come through DAC-DB. So any of your stories, any of your pictures, all that stuff is going to get uploaded there. It's going to be there. We can share it, use it for newsletters. There's a lot of tools there. We just need to start implementing them all and stay up to date as to the new releases of what they're doing for information.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I will see the board on Thursday, and hopefully see everybody on Friday for the scavenger hunt. Be ready to play.
What time is that?
I think we had talked about 7, just so everybody would be home and dinner and ready to. Huh?
You have to prepare for everything, or you'll send out all the.
I'm gonna send out an invite.
You hear that, Carol? You have to eat dinner before 7.
Or after 10.
One of the two. Pick one. All right, guys. Well, it was good seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Glad to see your faces. I'll be sharing out the recording. Reach out to anybody you haven't seen at any of these meetings. Please make a phone call to 1 or 2 friends from Rotary, just so we stay in touch with each other and all feel connected.
Hey, Julia.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick.
District Governor Rich Kirshner sent a note saying that he wanted to drop in and say hello to everybody tonight, but they're having trouble with their internet service in their neighborhood. So
okay,
they send their regards and said to tell everybody hello and keep on keeping on.
He's done a good job of making his rounds by not having to leave his house.
Yeah.
He's probably like, shh.
I've seen him more than I've seen in this, in this month than we've seen in the last couple of years.
I love not having to drive up and down the interstate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful for him, I'm sure. And I don't know how many, Karen, you guys may know. So Karen and Deb went on to the district assembly that was this last Saturday. I tried to log in. I was one of the people that got bumped out. Is there news, or what did you guys hear from the district assembly? I know it's more of a business meeting, but is there anything that came through that you guys would like to share?
It was really just a glitch. They had well over 100 participants trying to log in, and they're set up for an over 500 account. So it was somewhere in the back system of Zoom. It was locking people right out at that 100. As a matter of fact, I got dropped off and then couldn't log back in. So they're taking that up with Zoom directly on their account. But it should have worked fine.
It's fixed now.
Is it fixed now?
Yeah. Was there any business that would be interesting to the club?
I mean, pretty standard stuff. It was, approving the district budget, and talking about grant stuff. So normally when they do that, as you know, Julia, they do the secretary, the treasurer, and all those training classes. So they kind of broke those up separately this time. So those modules will be coming in the beginning of May, I think May 9th and 16th for those positions. So it kind of made it a little bit nicer because it was really just the business side of it instead of multi-layered.
One of the things they talked about was the fact that, clubs, because of the times we're in, have not been able to complete a lot of their projects or some of their projects that they had district grants written for. So what they've asked the clubs to do is, if there's a project that you weren't able to complete, to let Andy Lyman know. And if you want to put those funds towards a COVID project locally in the area, they would substitute that, or you can put that money, give that money back to the district, not give it back, but let them know that they're not going to need to spend it towards your grant, and they're going to, as a district, pool those funds that they aren't going to have to give out to clubs and then do something for COVID on a district level. So it takes the pressure off of the clubs that had things planned. We probably got one of those that we weren't able to do with the school. And that way we can either apply those funds to something locally or help the district do something on their level. So it was just, it was good to hear that.
Yeah, I talked to Valerie this morning. She's waiting on a signature from Blair, and then all our grants will be closed out. We did not move forward with the Mayaca River grant, the technology grant, just because there was some confusion back and forth. And then once we really sat down and evaluated it, we're going to be able to use part of our proceeds that we would have gotten for that grant over at the YMCA grant, because we spent so much money on the Y. So, so it'll help us overall, but then they'll still release funds for the district to use.
We're still getting back what we had originally planned on getting back.
Right.
We earmarked it in a different fashion to help us too, since we didn't have Placida's partnership on the Y.
Right. Kathy.
Do you know if we're going to get refunded for Ryla and Espotiel?
They, I think, are holding it forward for next year. Or
hold it forward for next year? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And the kids that were supposed to go this year will be invited next year. So I think it's going to be twice the size because they're still going to have the kids next year.
Instead do that year.
Yeah.
So instead of, so Espotiel is junior, so they can go as a senior then?
Well, it's sophomores, so it'll be sophomores and juniors.
So the next year, okay.
Yeah.
So does that make it S8 TL?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was good. I like that.
Yeah, I think I'll leave the meeting.
The other business item, they ratified Neil Snyder from, that's Audrey Snyder's son, has been now anointed as the incoming district governor designate. So
Oh, very cool.
So that was another piece of business. And also our grant capability, if we give over $12,000 to the annual fund, then we're eligible to apply for up to $6 grand for district grants for next year. So we keep that in mind as we finish this year out for those who are able to continue to make contributions.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to ask Valerie where we sit on how who's given to the annual fund.
Julia, can you see if she can have that presented in a report for the board meeting?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Have her see if she can print that report. Alfred, do you have that report off the? Can you pull that report as well of where we stand with? Knowing Valerie's technology skills, it would be faster and less painful if you were able to do it.
I'll print one and send it to
That
you.
would be awesome. She just hates it, having to dig around and pull those things. So
Okay, I'll be glad to.
that would be awesome. That would give us a goal to, at least we know where we're at and we give us a goal.
Right.
Very good. All right, any other news? Okay. Four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First.
The truth.
The truth.
Second.
Will build better friendships.
Third.
Will it
Beneficial to
build better friendships?
Hear the enthusiasm.
Fourth.
Beneficial to all.
Beneficial to all concerned.
Tell me what I'm doing. No.
You gotta have a cheat sheet.
I got a cheat sheet.
I'll have to wave this over my screen.
That's good.
All right, guys. I have no idea when the Elks is opening. I was gonna reach out to Doug and see what the plan is and how the plan is.
Wow.
It's something we'll talk about at the board meeting.
Do they fall under the same category as bars?
Yes.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
So I would assume that the month of May is probably
Well,
gone.
because today, talking at that town hall meeting, they said that the bars and stuff are way long down the road.
Yep.
Okay.
So I wouldn't expect them probably even be open anytime in June, the way they were talking.
Yeah.
I would look more like us being back there in July-ish type time.
Okay.
We'll start Deb's year out with the bang.
We'll have to get good at a house party and scavenger hunts and online socials.
We could party 6 feet apart.
We have a Friday night cocktail hour.
There you go.
Social.
Well, and that's kind of some of the things that I'm starting to think about, because I know that it's always much easier when we get together, even if we have to be a distance from each other, than to do this. This works, but you know that it's just not the same. So I'm
What's the
looking
date?
forward to trying to get to that point where we can do something.
What day do you take over?
July 1.
July 1.
July 1.
Fireworks.
I will just say this, I'm trying to be very creative for the installation banquet. A lot of the clubs are doing them via Zoom and I'm not buying it yet. So
They could
maybe
do a tailgate party.
but
That would be fun.
we'll figure something out.
I'll have it in my backyard if you want to have all the chairs like spread out.
Well,
He's
you know,
like,
I've
no.
got a couple of options in mind, so we'll see. But you know, I think in the next couple of weeks, I'll have a better feel of, you know, if that's going to be a real issue or not. I mean, we don't have a super large group, so if we could do something that would be, you know, open air, or I know it's not going to be a restaurant, or you know, but if we could do something on that line, then I think that we would be okay. So I'm kind of looking for options, and it also will be a little bit scaled back, a little bit more casual, which will also help us on our financial bottom line because we won't have that big of an expenditure.
How about the campground, Deb?
Thought about that. I think it's a little challenging for some of the members though. I think in town would be a little bit easier, especially in that initial, if it's our initial gathering back, you know, to test it out. You know, I don't know. It's a thought.
What about Boca Real poolside? We spread around.
Well, and I have mine as well. I have my community center that we could use, and we can utilize indoors and out. There's parks, there's a few options. It's what's going to work.
Yeah, and it is the rainy season.
Yeah.
It's the rainy season too.
I know.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah,
It's hard to plan
see
something
what we're
outside.
allowed to
What'd you say, Christina?
We kind of need to wait and see what we're allowed to do. Like my resort pool is still open, but I don't know that I can have a party there.
Right.
But
Right.
And that's kind of the same scenario. Now mine is open for my residents and my immediate guests, but not for gatherings.
yes.
So, you know, I'm thinking in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get a lot more information as to, are they going to start to lift that or is it going to stay in place? I think this week is really going to be a test with them opening the beaches and opening a few things. If it goes bad, I mean, I think they're going to pull it back and they need to. So this will be a good monitoring period to see if it's going to seem like it's going to continue to move forward or if they're going to turn around and go backwards.
I see our doctor is up there, Jacqueline.
Hi.
I was gonna say, have you heard anything we haven't heard?
No, but I keep getting asked the question from folks about the beaches, and you know, I've had mixed feelings on beaches and parks. I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with being able to go out and walk, and the problem is not everyone is socially responsible. And, you know, and that's the problem. And, you know, I think if people went for a walk with their family, that's fine. But as people start congregating, as I've made it clear to my patients, and friends that I don't really believe in this whole 6-foot rule. I've actually told my patients it's more like 27 to 30 feet, unless you're wearing a mask, and most people don't want to wear a mask to the beach. So, you know, and I think the reason we haven't seen as many cases, which is why people are getting more lax here, is because people have relatively, compared to other places, been doing a better job socially distancing. So, I mean, we do have to reopen at some point. I just think we have to do it very cautiously. And just because the government says it's time to open things up doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing.
Yep.
So people have to take that into account, their health, their and protecting themselves. But like Julia said, you know, it's gonna show itself. I'm a big fan of Dr. Fauci on TV. And one of the things I love that he says is the virus is going to do what the virus is going to do. We just kind of have to deal with it. And, you know, until we have some treatments or until we have a vaccine, we're just going to have to be very, very guarded.
Hey, Blaze, I have a question for you. How many boxes of red noses do we have at your warehouse? Oh,
You're on mute.
He's muted.
They're in the storage unit. Hold on.
Unmute. How's that? No?
All right, you're good.
Yep.
Okay. Come again?
How many red noses do you have? But Julia says she thinks they're all at the storage unit.
No, I as far as I know, I have them.
Yeah.
I think we have one box.
Hundreds, if not thousands.
Okay. All right.
No, really. I got like at least 6 or 7 boxes of noses.
Because we're thinking about doing something with them for Red Nose Day on the 21st. I wanted
The weekend's coming. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we should.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Alfred. I think you were the one that kicked it off. I think that was awesome.
What's that?
He has a few good ideas every once in a while.
I sent you an email, but you obviously didn't read it, Blaze.
No, probably Barbara in my office did though.
Yeah.
Well,
was that today? Because I was out on the boat today.
okay. The idea was this: we own red noses. We are in a very different position than a lot of people who don't collect red noses like we do. So my suggestion was that we could have a Red Nose Day and incorporate it and utilize the Boys and Girls Club that are feeding children Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays through Gulf Cove United Methodist Church. So they come through in a drive-through to pick up their food. And Red Nose Day is May the 24th, which is a Thursday. And we could have an opportunity to somehow, and I think that it would attract national attention if we do this thing right and put some thought into it, because I don't know of anybody else within 100 miles of us that has the number of red noses that we have. and I say that because Brian Leonard from Walgreens gave us, he literally collected all the red noses and gave them.
Yeah, I have them.
Nobody has it. We got them.
I got all the ones out of storage or out of your garage, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
Can we also then incorporate that maybe with Sky Academy because they're
yeah. I mean, we can make it, make it a really unusual and different event and make some fun out of it.
What if we did kind of like, if you go to my Facebook page, I have the Lemon Bay High School pen pass where the teachers wrote a note to the kids and then threw the pen. But my son did the video editing. He had them, each teacher videotape themselves catching a pen, doing a note, passing a pen, and then they all sent him the email, the videos, and he mashed them together and put up music to it and posted it out there for the seniors. I wonder if we could do something along that line where it's just get videos of people with red noses and waving, and then we smash them together, or have a big collage screen or something.
just volunteered Matt to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a mom's job, isn't it?
Maybe
you can volunteer Blaze, yeah, to be a photographer.
if we ask
I
people,
can't fit the noses on my nose. They don't open up enough.
I was talking about your son to be a photographer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we could do it at any place that they do the food distribution, you know, in the lines, which I know is Sky Academy and Boys and Girls Club, and I don't know,
City.
Vineland or LA Angel or one of the other schools is doing something, but that would be cool. We could have representatives at each of the drive-throughs with red noses and handing them out.
Yeah, so if we use Rotarians to pass the bag of food with the red nose, give them the red nose, do a photo shoot each car, and then anybody who wants to stay by their cars, as Alfred mentioned, you could, at Gulf Cove, they have space, you could just line cars up.
I will say, because all the red, I guess that would be a question.
Yeah, masks with red noses.
And most of the red noses are still sealed in the cellophane paper around them too.
So it would be how you would pass them without making them contagious or whatever.
Right.
drop them from a drone on the beach.
Drop them from a helicopter on the beach.
Well, if they're in boxes, and if you're distributing them with the meals, have them have the kids pick out of the box. Well, I guess now that wouldn't work either because that can't.
No, you don't want all his hands in there.
Never mind, scratch that.
Scratch that. Well, if we had gloves on, you know, and which I'm
As long
sure
as we didn't touch anything.
the food has gloves on, you know, on the lines.
Yeah, but they're taking it, unwrapping it, and putting it on their nose. That's the only reason I was thinking.
Give it some thought and come back together and.
I'm game. Let's get rid of them.
I say that out loud. No, I think it would be a great.
Are we going to get more of them from Walgreens?
I doubt it.
No, I don't think they're doing that this year with everything that's going on, and that's throughout the country, not just here.
But it's still Red Nose Day the other day, wasn't it?
It's
21st of May.
It's on the 24th of May.
24th is a Sunday.
21st.
I didn't see any advertisements for it.
Well,
it's the
it's
21st.
the 21st. My fault. 21st. I knew it was May 20-something.
So
21st.
about a month.
I wonder if we get them to give them the red nose with a little instruction, you know, how many people in your house, and here's an instruction on what to do and where to upload a picture or a video or a whatever. Maybe do it that way so they could take it home, they could sanitize it, unwrap it, put it on.
You could do a virtual Red Nose Day where you would have to create a platform where they would post that stuff, just like a virtual walk.
Right. Or we could say something like, we're going to be, yeah, we'll have to see what we could do. Think of how we could do that.
Well, what's the idea of the Red Nose Day, first of all? What's their, you know,
Childhood
awareness.
Oh, childhood awareness?
Hunger.
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 Oh, perfect. Okay.
Alleviate child poverty.
You fit right in.
Get a good tagline, something, you know, don't mean to be nosy, but how you doing?
All right. So we'll have to think about that one and firm it up over the next week.
Okay.
But I think that's a good idea. And I think we can utilize the noses, spread awareness. Maybe we can even get restaurants that are open. We can get people to make a donation toward childhood hunger. And it could go to the Youth Foundation for a COVID fund to help supply meals or food bank or whatever.
Maybe the EYF could take some of the money it's going to earn through this program, and we could in turn do a matching, you know, we'll match $1 if you'll donate $2 and get a free red nose. And that way we get our dollar back, so to speak, and make a contribution to something, whatever it might be.
Yeah. All right. Everyone shoot ideas my way and we'll bring
That would be a nice fundraiser for EYF.
Come up with some distribution, some distribution system so that we could get enough noses, you know, into the Englewood community. And I like that idea. Hey, how many's in your family? And it'd make family fun. So you you know, 4 or 5, 6 noses in a family and let them take a picture and upload it, do the collage thing, and you know, maybe that little movie type thing or whatever. And
Yeah.
it'd be cool. I mean, there's lots of things we could do if we, for you creative kind of people.
Well,
Yeah,
and I
I just
have
like,
another idea on the burner that this might play in nicely with. So we'll brainstorm and see what we come up with.
Good.
okay. All right. Very good. Great minds. Put them all together. We'll come up with a good idea and a fun plan. All right, guys. Talk to you later. See you on Friday.
Bye,
Blaze,
all.
Blaze, I like your shirt.
Hey, me too.
It's a good shirt, Blaze.
Thank you.